A lot of times people will bring us deals from these other areas that might fit our criteria. And we realize right away, well, who's going to be our property manager up there? And it seems like that's really one of the key components in us operating well with the deal is a good property manager, because you're going to rely on them to be the boots on the ground, to be the bad guy with the tenants and have to fire staff and, that sort of thing. And we picked our first property manager we fell in love with. The vice president was a great guy. Really? We were ready to go. And then just to come find out that people were like, they don't perform well. They don't push what they need to. And thank goodness we didn't actually move forward with them. But I would say if you're going to do anything, find a good property manager.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Passive Road to Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Jarrett. Today we have two guests, Andrew Moore and George Cline.
Hello.
Andrew is the founder of Hill Creek Capital and has over 9 years real estate investing experience. He began investing in single-family homes while living in northern Colorado. Currently, he's a general partner on 1,038 units. Andrew's passionate about helping others and fostering financial stewardship. George has been a successful entrepreneur for the last 25 years, starting several businesses, specializing in internet and networking. He's traveled all over the US and several European countries, supporting companies such as Apple and Adobe. In the past 2 years, he's focused on larger multifamily housing and currently has over 1,100 units under management. Andrew and George, thanks so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate you having us on.
Thanks for making the time.
Yeah.
So you guys obviously have a lot going on, looking at a lot of deals right now. It's pretty hot market. What are you guys most excited about right now? And on the other hand, is anything, keeping you up at night?
Just the excitement of, what I think 2022 has to offer or has in store for us. 2021 was a great year. I think a lot of the work, the time and energy we put in last year, we think we're going to get to see a lot of the benefits of that hard work this year. At least, we're working and kind of preparing for some fun times there. I think a lot of people in the industry have a lot of, a new energy, with the beginning of the new year. People are looking for deals, deal flows picking up, and then there's a lot of people looking to get involved in deals. So, yeah, we're excited.
That's awesome. George, anything you want to add or anything?
Well, yeah, what keeps us up at night, we signed got a new apartment complex under contract right at the end of the year.
Congratulations.
It's a nice size, 256 units. And it's quite a large raise of equity we have to get. And Andrew asked me, he goes, does this amount make you nervous? My answer was absolutely. Anything that ends with millions, even though we work in those now, it's still a little nerve-wracking. So
for sure. Yeah, it can always be a little scary. Definitely. Now, you guys both have different backgrounds in real estate. What made you decide to go multifamily? And, is that your favorite kind of investment now versus the other kinds?
Yeah, for me, I've done some things, single family home. I did some student housing, sold some notes, held some notes on some properties, but was trying to help my dad out with his retirement. He was a pastor for 40 plus years, had a fairly meager retirement, and tried to figure out a way to grow that quickly. And so we got back into real estate after, a couple decades of me stepping away from it. And just kind of went through all the bells and whistles, single family homes all the way up. And it just seemed like scaling single family homes was a lot more work than we wanted to do. We didn't want to be landlords. So looked at smaller multifamily and realized, shoot, if we're going to go that way, we might as well go big. And so started that in around 2020. And it wasn't until I met up with Andrew, COVID hit in 2020 and all the lockdowns and such, and real estate market kind of freezing for a while. It wasn't until I connected with him that things really took off, and he helped change a lot of my mindset, helped me think I could do more than I thought I could, and it's just been a great thing. And so that's what's really it's been just a little over a year that he and I've been working together, and that's what's really ignited my real estate experience.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I had a few years of single family rental experience. I had over the last 8 years had picked up a few single family rentals and had some really great successes with those, and then had some huge headaches. And I think I learned, how to select the market was one of the big takeaways for me, with one of those sad stories of the fourplex in a bad place. But really, that all kind of led to me discovering multifamily, the whole idea of scaling with multifamily, and then was just fortunate enough to find a group of folks that were committed to excellence and religious integrity, and then they were going for it. And so that kind of gave me the confidence to pursue it as well. And as George mentioned, we ended up meeting at one of the events that the group had put on, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now with single family, did you find that the management was one of the hardest things, versus a big syndication, or what was your most struggles there?
I think my biggest struggle was, I was trying to be like too hands-on, and I was doing it from a distance. Okay. So long distance real estate investing is kind of hard to do just in general. But one unit, working with a property manager, and cash flow is tight, and finances are tight. That definitely wasn't a comfortable place to be in at the time.
Yeah. One big repair and there goes your cash flow, on the single family, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, Andrew, were your single family homes up here in Colorado?
I had a few up in Colorado, which is essentially zero cash flow. But then exactly. my supposed cash cow in St. Louis didn't quite ever pay. So, yeah.
I live up in about an hour north of Denver, which is Andrew used to live and work up in this area. We didn't know each other back then, but he owned some properties not far from here. And when I got back into real estate, we got one here and did some, like student housing, room by room rentals. It's about the only way to make any sort of cash flow up here. Like, as you said, prices are so expensive up here. People buy for appreciation, which they do, but that's kind of a hard model unless you've got some money just to sink into that. So I was doing some long distance investing as well, and I'd built an okay team over in Ohio, but it was still a lot more work. I didn't want to try to get another job doing that. So
yeah, buy yourself a job, basically, right? Yeah.
Although that's what we have now. We're both full time into this.
That's awesome! Congratulations.
Yeah, that's what we're doing full time, and we're having a blast with it.
That's great. Now, so you guys have owned other properties, like we spoke about. What do you think would be your worst moment as a real estate investor, your worst deal, and what did you guys learn from that experience?
Mine's way back. Mine's when I was in my mid-20s. And I had just bought 2 large places over off the college campus, right off the campus. And I was cash flowing, no money down. I was cash flowing about 2 times what a minimum wage job, full-time minimum wage job would pay back then. And I was just thinking I was invincible. I could do anything. I was driving somewhere and saw some house up on stilts, like it was getting moved or whatever, on a trailer. And I found some property up by a lake. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that because, all I do is make money. And that was just a horrible, dismal failure. I was on the side of a hill, and I had financed everything on that deal through credit cards.
Oh.
Yeah, that was awesome. And we were supposed to get the house put down on the foundation, and it rained for which it never does, for 2 months straight. And the big vehicle and the crane that was going to pick up that house and move it is we can't go up there. We'll slide right off the side. So I lost money, and it was a headache on that. So I'm staying away from anything like that at the moment. So
yeah, that's pretty high risk with the credit cards.
Oh God. Oh yeah. It was great going into the bank, some 20-something-year-old punk going in there. And I'm pulling out credit cards going, I need 5,000 off this one, 3,000 money orders. And it's the president came out. Right? Yeah. Does he have a gun?
That's funny.
I guess, I think my worst experience was, in the property I alluded to in St. Louis. I think I bought against all of my current criteria for market selection. Household income was too low. Property values were too low. poverty was too high, and there was a lot of crime. So all those things that, I guess a newbie real estate investor doesn't really know how to calculate. You can try to look at path of progress and whatnot. Fortunately, I didn't quite, cash flow like I was supposed to, but, I think I sold it for, a chunk more than what I paid for it. So I exited not too bad, but it wasn't worth the late nights and all that stress. So
yeah, exactly.
That was probably my worst single family experience. The worst multifamily experience that I think is kind of interesting is, and I think a lot of people kind of face this challenge, but it's like, hey, I want to be a GP and I want to raise. And, you kind of create a long list of all the people that and most people start with friends and family. Right. And you write down maybe 20 people, and that, John's good for $100,000 and this guy's good for this amount and this amount and this amount. And then you start calling and you're like, you commit to join a team and you're like, hey, I'm going to do this. I can raise $1 million, no problem. I wasn't quite that ambitious or naive, but, I had a small goal, and fortunately, the deal that I was a part of was strong enough that some people picked up my slow moving investors and the deal got funded and it was a success. So it's going well.
Yeah, it's funny. Capital raising is harder than people think. Especially the first time around. I definitely learned that lesson as well.
Yeah.
It can be a little nerve wracking. It's like, we all come from different backgrounds. It's not like I've been a real estate guy my whole life. And a lot of people respect my opinion, in the tech field. I'm kind of like the go-to guy. They call me, people all over the country. Mm-hmm. But when I started talking about, finances and investment, they didn't know me that way. So it's, trying to build some credibility that way. The first one was definitely the most difficult. And, I alluded to a mindset change. It was after I did my first one. I raised what I said I was going to. It was a small amount. And I was done. That was all my friends and family.
Tapped out.
Yeah. And Andrew and I, when we first started, talk about mistakes, we were just driving every market we could. We spent a lot of time in the car, but it's how we kind of got to know each other, good and the bad. Mm-hmm. And he really challenged me with some things. He's like, why don't you raise for another deal? I'm like, well, I can't do that. And he came up with some interesting ideas that helped me switch how I was thinking about it. And I ended up raising on 3 more deals within just a couple of months. And so getting your first one done, getting a part of a deal at all, for me, that was a very key moment in getting going. Because then I started looking at, hey, this isn't just something I printed on a card or put on a website. I actually can do this. This is what I can make money at this, and this is a real thing. And I think that perception I had of myself helped other people perceive me a little differently as well. So,
how was that transition? I guess from being a business owner and in the tech field, was the biggest challenge? Was that the mindset for you, or what do you think?
I had joined, prior, just at just weeks before all the lockdowns happened. Perfect timing. And in my own business, which was all event based, so trade shows, corporate events, so all sorts of travel, never at home. It was I was set to have my biggest year ever. I remember at one point just in January, which is not the busiest month, I had 4 different teams in 4 different cities doing stuff for me at one time. It's like, this is going to be a great year. And I was just going to do real estate at the end of the day. Thinking I could just kind of do this part-time. I'll just go find some apartment complexes. I'll make a couple calls to brokers and everything will work out. And that my whole, industry that I'd worked on for a couple decades just disappeared. It still hasn't really recovered. I'm starting to see some signs of life out there. But yeah, so I didn't have much of an option. It was like, well, I guess I could have done something else, but it's like, well, here's my chance. Let's go for it, full bore. And it was, I with all the uncertainty that happened in 2020 with what's going to happen, is everything going to fall apart? And I didn't really get moving much. I made a couple steps backwards. And I'm sure that those were all necessary just to get my mind in a new place. But even after Andrew and I got our second deal accepted, he looked at me and goes, are we real syndicators yet? He just knew that I had this thing of, Well, what was it? It was Billy Madison or one of those movies where he said he goes to play to play golf. They said, "Oh, are you a golfer?" He says, "No, I'm a hockey player. I'm just golfing today." It's like I just never really felt like I was. Wasn't it? Yeah, that's what it was. No, I'm just some trade show guy. I'm not a real estate guy.
Yeah.
So when he said that, he's like, "Do you feel like a real one yet?" And it's like, yeah, I guess this is what we're doing now. So.
That's awesome. What myth do you guys want to debunk about syndication? There's so many out there. What do you think is just, pretty common, but not true at all?
Well, I think a lot of people say it's really easy to get into it. And I think that kind of depends on the person. It is, the easiest way to get involved on a general partnership team is, well, first knowing people, and then helping out with a raise. Look over the deal, help out on the general partnership team, and raise some capital. Yeah. But to actually to develop a relationship with a broker, you have to really know a market. You have to really know how to analyze the deal. A lot of things that take a ton of time. So it's not always as easy as some people make it out to be. One thing that I do think is pretty accurate is that once you get the ball rolling, or like the snowball started, it can really start to accelerate, which is fun. So, George, yeah, I know this is kind of a question that you have some thoughts on. So what are you thinking?
Oh, I really agree with you. It's like as I alluded to, the idea that I was just going to do this on the side. I had done a couple coaching programs that just say, hey, start small, get an 8 unit, get a 12 unit, and I guess I don't know if this is a commonly held myth that you can do this by yourself. This is a complete team sport, especially at this scale. It's like, our teams have, we have in the teens amount of people on our team. That doesn't include all of our, the contractors and third-party vendors we hire. It's like, this is really about who you know. And maybe there's a type of person that can go out there and do it on their own, but I could not have done this at the end of my work day. My work days on the road were very long, and the idea that it takes, well, for one, when you want to talk to brokers, they usually want to talk on the weekdays. They like to pull the 9 to 5.
Right.
So trying to do this just on a lunch break, I'm not saying it can't be done, but sometimes it seems like some of the gurus make it seem like, well, anybody can just go do this. And it was a lot of work. But I agree too, Andrew. It's like one of the myths I've heard, what is it, the law of the first deal? It's like, after our first one, again, I'm sure it helped our mindset. When we talk with investors, other possible GPs, but also with the brokers, we noticed the brokers treating us differently. Yeah. And they're like, you're not, anybody can talk the game, but to actually be able to pull this thing off, that's a big one for us. So,
yeah, to be proven closers, they know you're the real deal at that point, right?
Yeah. Every time we talk to a broker, we're getting near, on best and final. We're like, well, what's it going to take? And they're like, well, of course, price. And they always say it's not price. They said it's a surety of closing. That's the thing we hear all the time. It's like, it is price. It is price. That's not play.
Price is always part of it, yeah.
It's not price, but you need to raise your offer by $500,000.
Right, yeah. Oh, great. That's funny. Well, if you were in if somebody's starting out brand new, what do you think would be the top maybe 4 people that they would have to focus on to get on their team to at least start and look at deals and underwrite deals, and what would be your recommendations?
I feel like there's a lot. So I was in the same boat, a few years ago, like in the syndication space, and it's like, I had a call with a pretty well-known guy in the industry, and I did exactly what most kind of like new or green folks do. It's like hey, I want to add value. I'm here to help, and they're like, okay, well, how can you help? And you're like, it's like, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. But if you haven't done anything and you can't show me that you're adding value, it's like, hey, I wish you the best of luck, but like, why should I?
Right.
Why should I work with you? I mean, like,
I don't need somebody to go get me coffee,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's if you're starting to build your team from scratch, who are the 4 people you'd get? It almost seems like the path that I would recommend is kind of what Andrew is saying, is I would try to become a part of somebody else's team first. And it seems like what we're always looking for is somebody that can help, help with certain events, but definitely bringing in some capital with you. Being able to do that definitely helps. You can get in a lot of deals, and what you learn by getting people coffee at that point, let me analyze this part, or let me do this thing. It's not like they couldn't do it themselves. It's kind of like, I'm sure it was working with me on the first couple of deals. It's kind of like when I want to teach my kids to do something new, it's like, it's going to take me longer than if I just do it myself.
Right.
And so I know that, when we were more green than we are now, that a lot of the people helped us out, and I knew it spent extra of their time. So it's not like you add value. It's more like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit. I can maybe help some capital raising, but really you're going to take some time to train me. So finding a good team that you can be a part of, that'll let you be a part of their deal. It gets your name on a deal, at least in your mind, the way you can post it on social media of, hey, I just closed on a 300 unit apartment complex. And no, I wasn't the main guy,
Yeah.
But there's something with that, with building credibility. Some of my investors were just friends from Facebook that saw I posted, hey, I closed this deal. And the guy called me up and says, what's going on with this? Tell me about what's happening. And so when the next deal came up, he was raring to go. So that's probably what I would, that's how I would suggest people get going. If you're going to start building your own team, I think one thing Andrew and I still try to look for, we don't focus on a single market per se. We like finding a lot of these overlooked markets, rather than, trying to go down to Orlando or Phoenix or, Dallas, all these great places. Maybe we'll do that sometime, but we're trying to find a lot of these overlooked up and coming places. But a lot of times people will bring us deals from these other areas that might fit our criteria. And we realize right away, well, who's going to be our property manager up there? And it seems like that's really one of the key components in us operating well with the deal is a good property manager, because you're going to rely on them to be the boots on the ground, to be the bad guy with the tenants and have to fire staff and that sort of thing. And we picked our first property manager we fell in love with. The vice president was a great guy. Really? We were ready to go. And then just to come find out that people were like, they don't perform well. They don't push what they need to. And thank goodness we didn't actually move forward with them. But I would say, if you're going to do anything, find a good property manager.
That's great advice, actually. Yeah, the management can make or break the deal, Absolutely. Seen it happen. So one more question, and then we'll get into our 5 to thrive. Okay. So looking back, knowing what you know now, if you could talk to your 18, 20-year-old self, right, going back, what would you tell that young man to do differently, or nothing at all?
Andrew, you go first. It was your 18-year-old self is not that far away from you.
Oh man. Well, I think I joined the Marine Corps right after high school, so I think that was an actual that was a good move. Like most young Marines, definitely kind of squandered away what little we made. I think that I could have been a little bit more intentional about, I guess, investments at that point. As far as real estate, doing that at 18, I mean, fortunately, we started getting single family homes with VA loans, and in northern Colorado, they definitely kind of set us up at a good trajectory. So that's about it for that. George, what do you got?
It's funny because I've been different than Andrew and I've gone through a midlife crisis, just more of pondering my mortality and such, which I think he's a little wiser at a younger age than I am, probably being a Marine and having to ponder your mortality, where I just was kind of carefree for quite some time. And I just remember telling somebody just recently, it was like, I don't think old George and young George would get along very well. Young George was more or less fairly stupid. And, I think he was a fun guy, but I guess on life sort of thing, I remember somebody telling me, and I didn't listen to him, and I wish I would have. He said, God, I was in my 20s, and this was a successful business owner. He goes, if you take a guy who spends 10% more than he earns every month, and you take a guy who spends 10% less than he earns, and he goes, and you look at that guy after 10 years, they're going to be vastly different, which makes sense. And I was like, oh, okay. And maybe I acknowledged it, but I didn't live it. So that's probably the life thing I would try to tell young George.
Oh.
But then, like as I said, I got into real estate and then just got out of it. I had a hard time, and it was after that one with where we were going to move the house. That went so horribly that I just kind of got out of it. I should have told myself stick with it. I would have liked to, done that. So
that's good advice, guys. Yeah. So now, if anybody wants to contact you, how should they go about and reach out to you, and maybe your social media information too?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Andrew Moore with Hill Creek Capital. My website's hillcreekcapital.com. My email is andrew@hillcreekcapital.com.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. My email is George at Freedom Point Ventures. I couldn't get a longer domain. That's as many as they would sell me.
Yeah,
so, freedompointventures.com.
Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes too, so people can just, hyperlink right to it.
Great.
Cool, thanks.
So now our 5 to Thrive. So this is just a word association game. I'm just going to rapid fire basically 5 words or phrases and just give me back, whoever wants to go.
You want to just alternate, Andrew?
I thought you were going to talk the whole time anyway.
I was going to say, I normally do. So trying to give equal time here.
So yeah, just give me the first, word or phrase comes to mind, but you can't repeat your answer is the only thing.
Okay.
All right, you guys ready?
Okay, Andrew, you're first. I'll take 2 and 4. You take 1.
We'll see how it goes.
All right.
All right. First one is entrepreneurship.
Challenging.
Busy.
Passive income.
Can we say a phrase or just a word?
Yeah, phrase or word.
Yeah. Road to wealth.
Freedom.
Mm-hmm. Syndication.
Fun.
Leverage.
Yeah. Tax reduction.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. And multifamily real estate.
Yeah. Passion. My passion. Yeah.
Partnership.
Mm-hmm. Great answers, guys. Well, it's been a blast having you guys on here. I really appreciate the time.
You bet.
And looking forward to this one coming out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks, man.
Lots of fun.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.